All right, let's talk about one of those warning lights that just drives you crazy on the dashboard. Today, we're going to figure out how to diagnose it, and the best part is you probably already have the only tool you need, a simple multimeter.
You know the feeling, right? You're just driving along, minding your own business, and then bam, that annoying ABS light or maybe the traction control light just flicks on. It's super frustrating, but hey, don't panic. We're going to walk you through the number one suspect and show you exactly how to test it.
More often than not, that little light is trying to tell you something specific. It's pointing to a problem with one of your wheel's speed sensors. And these little guys are absolutely critical for your anti-lock brakes and stability control.
Now, here's where things get tricky. You've probably looked online, right? And a lot of guides will just say, oh, just check the resistance. But, and this is a big but, they often leave out the most critical piece of information. See, there are two totally different kinds of sensors, and if you test them the wrong way, you're gonna get the wrong answer. That's why we're doing this explainer, to make sure you get this right on the first try.
So before you even think about putting a multimeter probe on anything, we have to do the single most important step in this entire process, and that is figuring out what kind of sensor you're actually dealing with.
The difference between them is actually pretty cool. A passive sensor, think of it like a tiny little generator. As the wheel spins, it creates its own electricity. An active sensor, on the other hand, is more like a digital switch. It needs power from the car's computer to even turn on. And, as you can guess, this completely changes how we test them. So the big question is, how do you know which one you have? Well, it's actually incredibly easy. It'll take you, 30 seconds with your multimeter? Let's do it. Okay, let's walk through this. Pop the hood or get under the car and find that wheel speed sensor connector. Go ahead and unplug it. Now, listen up, because this part is absolutely key. You want to test the side of the plug that goes back to the car's computer, not the sensor itself. Got it? Okay, grab your meter, set it to DC volts, turn the ignition on, but don't start the engine, and then just touch your probes to the two little terminals in that harness. And boom, here's your answer. If that multimeter screen lights up with a voltage, anything between 5 and 12 volts DC, you've got an active sensor. That means the car is actively sending power to it. If you see 0 volts or, something super close to 0, you're looking at a passive sensor. Simple as that. Now you know exactly which path to go down. So, now that we've identified our sensor, let's kick things off with the passive ones. Remember, this is our little generator, and there are two fantastic ways to make sure it's working.
First, we can check its internal wiring just by measuring its resistance. And second, we can check if it's actually doing its job, generating power, by looking for that AC voltage. Doing both of these tests gives you a really confident diagnosis.
For the resistance check, keep that sensor unplugged and just switch your meter over to ohms. Touch your probes to the two pins on the sensor side this time. You're hoping to see a reading somewhere between, say, 1,000 and 2,500 ohms. Now, if you get OL, which means open loop, or you see 0 ohms, well, that sensor's toast. But here's the best pro tip. Go check the sensor on the other side of the car, the one that's working, and just compare the two. And this right here is a golden nugget of advice from the pros. If you don't have the official manufacturer specs, who cares? Just measure the good sensor on the other wheel. If the two resistance readings are super close, like within 1% of each other, then the internal coil on your suspect sensor is probably perfectly fine. All right, now for the final confirmation, switch your meter over to AC volts. Keep it connected to the sensor, reach down and give that wheel a good, solid spin by hand. You should see a little bit of AC voltage just pop up on the screen and bounce around. And the faster you spin that wheel, the higher that voltage should climb. If you're seeing that voltage, your passive sensor is alive and well. Okay, but what if your test showed you have an active sensor? Well, you can just forget about that resistance test. It's totally useless here. For an active sensor, we have to see it in action, which means it's got to be plugged in and powered up. So, for this one, the game plan is totally different. The sensor has to stay plugged in. This means you've got to do something called back probing. All that means is you gently slide your multimeter probes in from the back of the connector right where the wires go in while it's all still connected. Set that meter to DC volts. Now, when you spin the wheel, and do it kind of slowly, you're not looking for a steady voltage. Nope, you're looking for a digital pulse. The numbers should be jumping, flipping between a high number, like 5 volts, and a low one, close to 0. If you see that voltage flashing like that, bingo! Your sensor is doing its job perfectly. Okay, so you've run the right test for your type of sensor. You've got your reading. Let's just put it all together and make the final call. Is it good or is it bad?
So here it is, your final cheat sheet. For passive sensor, it's bad if the resistance is open or shorted, or if it makes zero AC voltage when you spin the wheel. For an active sensor, it's bad if that voltage signal is just stuck high, stuck low, or, well, if it's not there at all. This right here is your guide to making that call with 100% confidence. And there you have it. You just went from a mysterious warning light to a rock-solid answer. You now know not just how to test a wheel speed sensor, but how to test it the right way, depending on its type. You're not guessing anymore, you're actually diagnosing. So the only real question left is, what's your next move going to be?